Hello, everyone, and welcome to another academic success workshop hosted by the Student Academic Resource Center here at UCF. Today, we're going to be talking about your test toolkit and how to ace your upcoming exams. So first, a little bit of an introduction. My name is Madison Verdone. I'll be facilitating this workshop. Originally, it was planned to be in person, but due to the hurricane, we are moving it to a video format, just in time for midterms, so you all can have a couple of tips to hopefully help you succeed on your upcoming midterms, and this can be used for finals as well. So a little bit about myself. I'm the Academic Consultation and Engagement Graduate Assistant for SARC, and I'm currently in my second year of my Clinical Psychology Master's program here at UCF. And I came from UF, where I did my undergraduate in psychology and got my BS, and then I got my BA in criminology there as well. So definitely had to study a lot during my time, took many midterms and final exams. And what I'm going to talk to you all about today is a little bit of everything. So you can see the agenda here. I'm going to go over SARC services that can be extremely useful for prepping for exams, as well as how to make a study schedule so you're not cramming when it comes to taking that exam the next day. You're not having to just study everything the night before. And then also what is effective studying. And then I'll introduce a little bit of an activity, hopefully you all can do at home. And then going into test prep and then some UCF resources that can be really helpful. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about SARC services. Here are our main services, but we offer a couple of different options here. So the first one is peer tutoring, and this is more so catered towards STEM courses with some business courses interspersed there as well. And a lot of them may be core courses that you have to take even if you're not a STEM major. So these are typically high drop, fail, and withdraw courses. And they're offered in group sessions in which you don't need an appointment beforehand. You kind of just show up at the time indicated. I'll show the schedule in a second here and how you can find that. And then there's also one-on-one sessions if you're finding that you need a little bit more individualized help. There's also supplemental instruction. So again, they're more STEM focused, high DFW courses. However, the difference is that, well, for one, they don't offer one-on-one sessions. They're all going to be group sessions. Again, no appointment needed. But they're more group work based, and they are going to be offered 4 times weekly with 50-minute sessions. And with the SI leader, they actually attend the class with you. So they have exact knowledge of what's going on with the class with your specific professor. Then we also offer academic consultations, and these are one-on-one, hour-long virtual or in-person sessions with a peer consultant. So essentially here you collaboratively assess what you need academically, whether it's focusing on study skills or time management, maybe finding your motivation, or simply you need individualized help for test prep. So these you do need an appointment for, which you can navigate to through our website, which if you type in UCF SARC, it's going to be the first link that shows up on Google. And then we also have the academic success workshops, which is essentially what you're attending right now. They are hour-long workshops to basically help improve college level skills, whether it's studying, time management, anything along that nature. We do typically 6 per semester. However, in the summer, we'll do 3 since it's a shortened semester then. And then at the end of each semester, well, at least at the end of fall and spring, we don't hold it for the summer. We have study union, and these are multiple review sessions. I think last year we had like 80 review sessions that are put on by the peer tutors and SI leaders the week before finals, and that's held in the student union. So we essentially take over the student union and offer a bunch of review sessions to help prepare for those final exams. All right, so before I get into this, I just want to show you all how to find the schedule for some of our resources. So if you type in UCF SARC into Google, again, we're right there, the first link. You come to our home page and you'll just click right here for the peer tutoring fall schedule. And these all are gonna be no appointment needed. So you just show up and you'll sign in. Some are offered online, some in person here in TCH 117. And then sometimes they'll be offered in the CS or CECS building. And then this is where you could sign up for one-on-one peer tutoring. And then we also have supplemental instruction. The schedule is here. As you can see, there's located with specific instructors here. And then again, those 4 times weekly, they are offered in a couple different locations here. So just pay attention to that. All right. So now that you all know how to access more of our services there, I'll get back to the presentation. And this is specifically focusing on the study schedule portion right now. So a lot of students find it very easy to kind of push off their studying to the last minute, either the day before or a couple days before. However, studies show that the best way to solidify the information in your brain is to consistently study over time. So rather than just studying 2 days before or the day before, you need to start your studying early and have a minimum a week before the date of your exam to start specifically studying for the content that's going to be on the exam. So an example of this is if your test is on the 20th, then you need to start preparing the Friday before, so like on the 13th. And what I like to specifically do is use my planner calendar to schedule my specific study times every day leading up to the exam. So rather than just saying, okay, let me study Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I actually put in what time I'm going to be studying, what I'm going to be studying, and what I need to study. And an example of this will be on the next page. But how you can do this is break down into sections what you want to study each day. So for Monday, how I like to do it, especially if your classes are kind of focused around specific textbook chapters or the content is broken up chapter-wise, you can go Monday, I'll be studying chapters 1 and 2, Tuesday 3 and 4, Wednesday 5, 6, and so on. And then I love to save a review day because the review day helps you remember what you studied maybe on Monday and Tuesday that's not as fresh as what you studied on Thursday and Friday. So definitely keep in at least one day of that week before to basically save at least a couple of hours to review all the content. And then while students may not love using textbooks, it's really helpful to reference it at least, even if you are determined to not read. Make sure you're at least looking back to use it as an aid from what maybe the lectures had to offer. And then same with the lecture. If you're instead missing something from class, make sure you're looking at those PowerPoints or even emailing the TAs or the professors, attending auspice hours, reaching out to classmates, really using these resources because a lot of students will feel intimidated to do so, but that's why the resources are there for you. So definitely start building the confidence to utilize those resources. And the best time to do it is when you're starting to prep for an exam. So the next step to this is determining how long you are going to need to study per day. So this is going to change based on the class. So if you have an easier class, you don't necessarily need to be sitting there studying 3 hours every day, a week leading up to the test. Because one, you're going to get burnt out very quickly if you're just repeating and studying information you already know. And then 2, it's going to take away time from time that you could use for studying for your other classes. However, I do like to have a general rule of thumb that you should have a minimum of 30 minutes per day leading up to the test. So I also don't particularly like to study more than about 3 hours a day. Of course, if you feel like you need to study more, that's completely up to you. However, if you are studying with that consistent space studying method, then you typically shouldn't have to study for more than 3 hours a day. And again, it doesn't need to be the same amount of time each day. So if one day you only have about an hour to fit in studying, and then the next day, maybe you have 3 hours, and then the final day you have 2 hours. It should be more based on how you feel that you need to, the amount you need to study. So if you know the content very well, then maybe the next day you'll need to study for an hour or so. So definitely listen to what your mind's telling you and your confidence on the content. So this is the study schedule I was referring to earlier. As you can see, I've planned that week up to the test, so I'm assuming the test is going to be on that Sunday. Since a lot of the times, especially with online classes, the tests are due kind of just like at a general time. If you do have an in-person test or if the test is due at a specific time, definitely make your edits where needed here. But if you do have a test on Sunday, this would be a very good schedule to kind of practice for yourself. So you can see every day I have at least an hour built into my schedule to study, and I have it at different times based on what I have in my general calendar. And then you can also see what chapters I'm specifically studying here, and then also what activity I might be participating in. What else I'd like to do is write down the lecture note, like the lecture or the PowerPoints that I'm going to be using, because sometimes if the lectures are labeled different things, it's easy to gather those materials ahead of time and just have them all in one place and download it on your laptop, save it in a file, rather than just having to constantly take 10 minutes to search for one lecture that you might be needing to use. But I'll get into that a little bit more in some later slides. But we actually have this study schedule available on our website as well. I'll show you all how to navigate to that right now. So there's no excuses to not make a study schedule. So again, if you type UCF SARC, first link here, and you scroll down, actually it's under resources here. So first tab up here under resources, you can click on the study skills and test preparation resources. We have a video we'll actually watch soon, but here's all of the resources we have for studying. And if you click on the, I believe it's this, oh, I believe it's the study habit tracker. And then there's also sample study plan for an exam. If you scroll down here, this is what I used to make my study schedule. So I definitely recommend this, and you can like fill it in on the computer yourself as you're trying to do this, and just take a screenshot, or you can print it out, whatever works best for you. So I definitely recommend implementing that. So another general tip I like to say, especially when we're studying for large exams such as midterms or finals, is to create an environment that's conducive to studying. Because if you're in an environment that doesn't help you basically put you in the right mindset to study, then you're easily going to lose your motivation and you're going to become more distracted. So for me personally, I find that my bedroom is really difficult to concentrate in, mainly because my bed is like 5 feet away. So I'm not going to exactly find it easy to study for a couple hours when I could easily just hop into my bed and take a nap. So I personally like to study more so at a library or in my office or something like that. And that's just getting into the idea of avoiding places where I'd be easily distracted. Another one that can a lot of students might like to do, but leads to distraction, can be a study group. Small study groups are great, and I think they can really help promote an exchange of ideas, and especially on topics that you might have difficult with, but another student is doing well in. However, just make sure you're keeping in check that the study group is truly for the purpose of studying and you are accomplishing your goals within the study group rather than using it as a social hour. Another one is if you live with a bunch of roommates, it might be difficult to study in the living room or kitchen, mainly because a lot of people will be coming in and out of these areas. So I definitely recommend maybe finding an area that's more quiet. I think one of these, if you live in an off-campus apartment, that can be in the study rooms. A lot of apartment complexes have to offer, or even on campus. The library, sometimes the study union has a lot of good spaces too. And then along the lines of limiting your distractions, one of the easiest ones is picking up your phone constantly. Even if my phone's next to me, I'll have the urge to pick it up, even if I don't even see any notifications. So just physically put it in a different area, whether it's your backpack, in a drawer, or something like that. And then another one is to mute messages on your laptop, just because typically you're going to need your laptop to study. But if you have messages or emails coming up constantly, it's going to throw you off your track. And this is a little bit of what I was talking about earlier here, preparing and organizing your area. So essentially you want to get every single material you need beforehand to make sure you have enough space for everything. Oh, and make sure you have enough space for everything. Sorry about that. Before you start studying. Now, this is essentially because if you, for one, are working in a tiny area, you're going to be more stressed out with how much stuff is surrounding you, and it's really easy to be overwhelmed that way. And then also, if you don't have all of your materials ahead of time, such as like I was saying with specific PowerPoints, then you're constantly stopping that flow of studying. So maybe you're studying for 10 minutes and then you're like, oh, I actually need my calculator. Then you have to go search for that. And it takes, even if it just takes a couple minutes, everything adds up. Or if you're like, oh, I need to go get my water. Oh, I need a sweatshirt, anything like that. Over time, it's going to basically stop you in your tracks and you're going to have to restart your engine again, get back into the flow space. So make sure you're just getting everything you possibly need ahead of time. And then the last one I like to say is to create a most comfortable space for you. If you're uncomfortable studying, you're going to want to end it quickly. A lot of people will have problems with fluorescent lighting, so maybe go in an area where you can change the lightings or dim them. If you're sitting in a wooden chair, sometimes that can make you stop studying quickly because you're like, I am physically uncomfortable. I can't sit here any longer. So definitely take that into account when you're prepping for studying. So this goes into the question of how do you actually study? Because these are great tips ahead of time. But if you don't know how to study, then it might be a little bit difficult implementing an actual routine. So this video, I think, is really helpful if you attended the study skills workshop, then you might have watched it and you can skip ahead. However, I do think it is very important of a primer to show whenever we're talking about studying because it really draws out the process or explains the process of studying, I should say, so that it's more understandable and you can help get where you're at in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and play that. It's also obviously available on our YouTube here.
Welcome to Study Skills and Test Preparation. Do you find yourself spending countless hours studying, but not getting the results you would like? Perhaps you are not using the most efficient study strategies to prepare for exams. In this video, we will cover 5 types of study strategies for effective test preparation and better mastery of course content. You will want to start this process as soon as possible, as studying is a large investment, and you do not want to cram. First, let's look at your study environment. Do you currently study on your bed, on the floor, at the kitchen table? How about the library? If you are on your bed, your brain does not know if you're there to study or to sleep. This makes it easier to get distracted or doze off. If you're at the kitchen table, instead of focusing on studying, you may be tempted to get something to eat. Better options would be to study in the library or at a desk. since you will know exactly what you are there to do and will be able to dive right into your work. It is always important to study in a place that is conducive to studying. Now, let's talk about the 5 types of studying: studying to gather information, studying to learn information, studying to check for learning, studying to refresh, and studying to improve learning skills. When studying to gather information, you must organize everything needed in order to learn. Compile any study guides professors have given you, as well as your textbook, lecture, and chapter notes. First, make sure that you are reading your textbook thoroughly. One way to do this is by using the SQ3R method, which stands for survey, question, read, recite, and review. To survey your textbook, make note of the print, italics, charts, graphics, chapter summaries, and end of chapter questions. This shouldn't take more than a few minutes, as you are only identifying each chapter's core ideas. Next, develop questions from the main ideas you discovered during your survey. Now you can read and actively seek the information that will answer your questions instead of plodding through each line of text. Reading this way helps to prevent the blank mind syndrome, which is the inability to remember what you just read. Next, recite the answers you have found aloud from memory.
What are the 2 laws of inheritance? 2 laws of inheritance: law of segregation and law of independent assortment.
When you finish a chapter, try to answer your questions without looking at your notes or the text. You can then use the answers in your notes or text to check and see how much you have learned.
Organism with a pair of identical alleles.
Lastly, you should review these notes every 2 to 3 days. Now that you have adequate textbook notes, make sure to attend class and take notes on the lecture to fill in the gaps. To ensure the accuracy of your notes, you can compare them with those of a trusted classmate. You can also confirm your notes with your professor. Some suggested forms of note-taking include the Cornell format, note cards, and outlines. These formats facilitate reviewing and learning. When studying to learn the information you have gathered, frequent repetition becomes an important part of retention, but you must also learn to understand the meaning of the information, not just memorize. Individual studying and study groups are both equally beneficial, and getting creative with tough concepts is also encouraged. Time management is essential throughout this process. Make sure to define your priorities and create a timeline for yourself. You can refer to our time management video for more information. It is very important that you study to check for learning. The best strategy to create deep and durable learning is self-testing. Retrieving information on a regular basis helps you build strong connections in the brain and solidify concepts in your long-term memory. The harder and longer it takes you to recall, the stronger your retention will be. Quiz yourself without the help of notes or books. Take out a blank sheet of paper or use a whiteboard to write down everything you know about the subject which you are studying. You and a fellow student can also create practice tests and question each other in the format you expect on the exam. Repeat this process 2 to 3 times weekly if necessary to make sure you thoroughly master the subject. You can now study to refresh your knowledge, so you do not forget the material you have learned. Rehearse the concepts you haven't reviewed in a while to make sure they stay in your long-term memory. To ensure maximum retention, you should do this without the aid of your notes. The first 4 types of studying are designed to prepare you for what is important prior to taking your exam. Studying to improve learning, on the other hand, is what occurs after you have taken your test or quiz. Use your test results as feedback to help you modify or replace study skills in preparation for your next test or quiz. If you did not do as well as you had hoped, be sure to analyze your current study strategies and behaviors. Be honest with yourself and think about what type of studying you could have spent more time on. Talk to other students who did well on their exam and see what they did differently. This may help you discover different strategies that will work better for you in the future. You may also want to consider utilizing campus resources, such as SARC, tutoring, and supplemental instruction. By focusing on each of these steps from the beginning of the semester, and by managing your time and tasks wisely, you will never again have to cram before your exams. If you need additional support with study skills and test preparation, please come to the Student Academic Resource Center and let us be a part of your success at UCF.
So the difference there is that the Student Academic Resource Center is now located in Trevor Colborn Hall 117. It is a little bit of an old video, but I still think it's very useful and relevant to exams and studying for them specifically. Okay, let me try to, okay, perfect. So here I wanted to emphasize the variety of types of study, active studying you can be doing, including things beyond just taking notes and reading your textbook. And then I also wanted to note that something that's really important is to use different study methods throughout the entire process. So when you're going from your first studying stage, which is basically just studying to learn, to the last studying stage, you can use a variety. This is just a sample of them, but you can use a variety of study methods. So one I like to use, obviously, you're going to be taking notes at the very first where you're just trying to learn the information. However, another thing you can do is rewrite those notes in a different way, especially if you typed the notes at first. You can also make your own study guide with your notes, especially if the professor doesn't give you a study guide already. Or you can basically use your notes as a guide when you're reading the textbook. So if you see something that isn't in your notes that's in the textbook, you can use a different color and add it there. Another thing that is studying is attending tutoring or SI sessions. And those sessions, so the SI ones go for 50 minutes and then the tutoring sessions go for about 2 hours. That can be super helpful, especially with the STEM courses. They often do problems or practice problems with the tutor or the SI leader. And then on your own, you could be making flashcards. Physical flashcards help a lot too, especially since I think Quizlet is now potentially a paid for platform for the full version. So using a physical version can be a lot more helpful, especially since writing down does help solidify information in your brain more than necessarily like typing out the questions. So these are just a couple of different ideas to help you engage more in the content rather than just reading it and then hoping to memorize it. Now, another way that you can help increase your basically I can't think of the word, but the ability to study and continue studying is by taking regular study breaks. So sometimes it can be, you can be in a flow state and an hour will go by and you don't even notice. However, you should be taking at least a 10-minute break for every hour that you're studying. So that 10-minute break needs to be something completely away from this area where you're studying. So you can go for a walk, you could take that time to go on your phone, respond to messages, go outside, anything that's going to help you feel refreshed and prevent you from feeling that burnout. And burnout is especially common when you are having to cram. So making sure to try to prevent that as much as possible by creating that space study schedule. But also if it can naturally happen if you are just taking a 3-hour study session. So just make sure you'll have in total like a 30-minute break. So if you want to take that time to literally just try to watch a 30-minute episode of a show, you could definitely do that. Just close out or minimize your studying stuff for 10 minutes, turn on your show, and then make sure you have that timer after 10 minutes to go back to your studying. So this is the activity that I think would be really helpful to do at home, especially with midterms coming up. So the first step is to find the date that your next exam is. So if that is tomorrow, then that's tomorrow. Hopefully it's a little further out. But just find when your next exam is and determine at least 3 types of study techniques that'll help you be prepared for that specific exam. So if your exam is in let's say it's in chemistry. Some study techniques that can help is one, attending peer tutoring sessions. Another one could be doing, I haven't done chemistry in a while. I'm assuming there's some practice problems you could be doing. And maybe flashcards of formulas or elements, something. Maybe the periodic table. I don't know chemistry, but anything along that method. And then identify at least one resource that you can use to help. So that resource could be your specific professor, and you can set up maybe going to their office hours or set up a specific time in your calendar that you're going to go reach out to them. Or if it's another classmate, you can figure out a study session you and the classmate can do together, anything like that. So pause the video here and take some time to complete this activity. All right, so this is going into the test prep portion of the workshop. So I kind of broke this up into 3 portions, which goes from the night before the exam to after the exam. So in regard to the night before the exam, you are going to want to try and stick to your regular sleep schedule as much as possible. So while you feel like you may need to stay up super late and cram as much as possible, this is typically going to be worse than for you because studies show that sleeping actually helps you solidify information in your brain. So if you are still feeling uncomfortable after let's say 10 or 11 p.m., maybe take 30 more minutes to review whatever material you can get in and then go to bed. Mainly because those extra, if you stay up until 4 a.m. studying, it's not going to actually help you because you're going to be way too tired to actually retain any information at that point. So if you feel like you're behind, make sure you're reviewing what you know as well and go to sleep earlier rather than staying up all night. Then the other side of this is if you do feel like, okay, I'm confident it's 9 p.m., time to get into bed, but you usually don't go to bed until 11 p.m., that can actually create worse sleep for you since you're kind of forcing yourself to go to bed earlier than normal. If you feel tired enough to, obviously, go ahead. But if you're wide awake still at 9 p.m. and you can't get to bed, don't stress yourself out over that. Just stick to your normal sleep cycle. So these are some tips during the exam that can really help that people may have learned about honestly in high school, but don't often remember to do. And that really does lead to a lot of missed questions, especially if you're taking multiple choice exams. So one thing is genuinely read the instructions very carefully and underline key phrases. Interacting, this is harder to do, granted, with online tests, but you still can use your cursor to highlight things when you're reading them and stuff like that. So when you are actually taking the exam, make sure you're interacting with the questions and thoroughly understanding them rather than just reading them real quick and be like, oh, I know this one, and then selecting an answer. This is how a lot of simple mistakes can happen and then being frustrated with yourself when you're looking over your exam again. So definitely take your time here. And if you don't know an answer and you've already been sitting there for a minute or so and have not been actively working on maybe a solution, especially if it's math-based, go ahead and skip it and come back to it later because there could be a bunch of questions later on in the test that you do know the answer to. And then for the multiple choice, a really easy hack to kind of see if or eliminate distractor answers is to cover up the questions. And so when you're reading that question, or not cover up the question, sorry, cover up the answers. So when you're reading that question, don't even look at the answers. Think in your head, what do I think the answer is to this? And then select the option that matches closest to your answer that you created in your head. This can help you more easily remove any answers that are just one, not even right, or answers that are specifically put in there to trick you. And then trust yourself on your answers. Unless you found a key piece of information on a test, like through the test, or just remembered it yourself, typically if you change your answer to a different one, most likely it's going to be the wrong answer because you're second guessing. And with that, it's best to just keep the answer unless obviously you're reviewing and found a different key piece of information. So after the exam, make sure you are focusing on yourself at this time. So you can give yourself the rest of the day to discuss the test with your classmates, ruminate over it, think about all the possible different ways it could have gone better or worse for you. But then the next day, try to focus on other assignments, projects, maybe you have other exams to study for, because it's pointless to try to think back on what could have been. You need to instead focus more so on how you can do better in the future, or maybe keep, if you did great on it, keep implementing the same routine. So the test is over now. There's nothing we can do about it. Focus on the new material for that class and other class so you can master the next test, especially right now in this semester. It is midterm, so you do have a lot more opportunities to increase your grade if the tests or prior tests aren't what you hoped they would be. So use your resources as well. UCF offers a lot of amazing resources that often go underused by students just because they either don't know about them or they might feel embarrassed or what have you. So definitely look into what may be best suited for you. If you are having further trouble with studying and feel kind of lost in this area, I highly recommend booking an academic consultation session with one of our consultants here. They have availability Monday through Friday, and they are really tailored to you. So definitely check that out. And then you can also, if you are not doing well physically or financially, it's going to be very difficult to excel academically. So definitely, if you are in need, check out the Knights Pantry. Or there's also UCF Cares that you can go to, Office of Student Financial Assistance. Check all of those services out if you find that there are extenuating circumstances that are preventing you from doing your best. So I really do appreciate it, everyone, for attending the workshop. Hopefully you got something out of this session, and look forward to hosting more workshops in the future that hopefully you guys will drop by or watch on YouTube.